ESPN NFL insiders Chris Mortensen, Adam Schefter, and Ed Werder are all reporting that the NFL has offered to reduce Saints linebacker Jonathan Vilma's year-long suspension to 8 games. This as part of ongoing settlement talks involving the league, the NFL Players Association, and legal representatives for the 4 players who were suspended for their alleged participation in the team's bounty program from 2009 through 2011. According to sources familiar with the discussions, the league's offer was made late last week, but is conditional on Vilma dropping a civil lawsuit charging Commissioner Roger Goodell with defamation of character. Ed Werder joins us now from Canton, Ohio, where the Saints kicked off the NFL preseason Sunday night in the Hall of Fame game against the Cardinals. Ed, what is the reaction from the Saints players about this latest development?
Well, I think the first thing you have to keep in mind, Steve, is that Vilma has so far refused to make the deal that's been offered to him, and I think that's an indication that he feels he has the upper hand going into this week's litigation. There is a hearing scheduled for Friday in federal court. At that point, there could be a ruling, so they're kind of on the clock to get a deal done if they're going to compromise in some way. As for the Saints locker room, we had a chance to talk to a lot of players about this. Some of them were already previously aware that Vilma was in negotiations on a possible settlement, but they all to a man talked about how much they respect his willingness to defend his reputation, to go to court against the most powerful man in the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, for the chance to reclaim his reputation that's been hard-earned over nearly a decade in pro football and to possibly rejoin his teammates.
He's fighting for, who he is, it's all about his family name and all the things great things he's done on and off the field, and he has to do what he needs to do.
I think it'll be a huge victory, especially for John, and for the NFL or the players, to finally kind of, show a little bit of power.
The hardest thing going through this process, I think, is seeing a guy that you know what kind of person he is. I mean, be kind of dragged through the mud like that.
Scott Shanley, the linebacker, told me that it was really hard on the Saints players here last night when they briefly interacted and embraced suspended head coach Sean Payton, the first coach in NFL history to be suspended for his role in the bounty program, supposedly out the entire year. It'll be interesting to see that if some of these things are resolved, whether it is possible for even Payton to eventually return this season.
Yes, so much has been about Jonathan Vilma, and when you think about it, Ed, there are so many other people, players and coaches involved who also have something on the line, their names, their reputations.
Well, and Steve, I think it bears pointing out that these settlement discussions are taking place with all 4 of the players that have been involved and have been suspended. So it's, it's Will Smith here with the Saints. It's Anthony Hargrove with the Packers and Scott Fujita with the Browns, who could also benefit if a settlement is reached. Those are all players who are under discussions with the league about this issue. As we speak, I think it also bears noting that I spoke to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell last night in an interview before the Hall of Fame ceremony and asked him if he saw it as being feasible that some of these penalties would be reduced as some of this evidence came to public light, and some people, like Drew Brees, accused the investigation of being flawed and the results being wrong. And he said that, as always, they've remained open-minded about possibly rescinding some of the penalties, but first there had to be new evidence brought to light, and he told me right now that doesn't exist.
Ed Werder reporting from Canton, Ohio. No question, a developing story here on SportsCenter.